It was early 2011 when I first bought an Eastman guitar, an AR-805 acoustic archtop, which was purchased for a specific series of shows featuring 1930s-style jazz blues. Now, it was less than a year before that I played an Eastman in a shop for the first time, and what impressed me was how much its handmade feel reminded me of older guitars built in the USA and Japan. I've now featured a number of Eastmans on this channel, and they've all shared that quality of feeling like serious professional instruments. But when it comes to reminding me of vintage instruments, none have done that quite as well as today's guitar, the T64V. It should be obvious at a glance this is Eastman's version of the original Epiphone Casino or Gibson ES-330. Now, actually, the parallelogram inlays are straight from the Casino, which makes perfect sense, of course, since that's the model with rock star associations. In fact, if the Beatles and others had never played the Casino, well, I can't imagine it being so popular today, and creating a successful template for other brands to use. Because without those associations, most players would likely pass in favor of something with better upper fret access, if nothing else. That said, I've always liked the 330 and Casino for their unique combination of features. Now, in the early 2000s, I owned a 1966 ES330, and in many ways, this Eastman reminds me a lot of that guitar, especially the sound, which, along with the similar construction and hand-built feel, also has a set of very vintage-sounding Lawler P90s. Now, of course, this is a laminated, fully hollow maple body. Without a center block, these tend to be really light, and this one is a featherweight at well under 6 pounds. Now, this version has Eastman's lightly reliced Antique Varnish finish, which really does feel a lot like aged nitro. Now, rather than the gloss of Eastman's True Tone finish, which is used on the standard models, the Antique Varnish gives off a sheen that looks and feels like a guitar that's been well cared for, but has been around a while. Now, the relicing is the sort of subtle wear you find on guitars that are aged but not abused. At least that's the impression I get. Now, I should also point out that it's a bit less apparent with the red finish than with the gold burst option. Now, of course, there's the usual high-quality hardware. In this case, Goto Relic Series tuners and bridge, and an aged nickel trapeze tailpiece. Now, the pots are 250K audio taper CTS, and the output jack is by Switchcraft. One departure from the vintage formula is the maple neck and ebony fingerboard. Now, this neck is an even C profile, and I measured the depth at .866 inch, or 22 millimeters at the first fret, and .91 inch, or 23.6 millimeters at the 12th, which feels very nice to me. That's full without being overly chunky. It's the usual 24.75 inch scale length with a 12 inch fingerboard radius. Now, the frets are a medium jumbo Jescar, and the bone nut is Eastman's typical 1.72 inch, or about 43.7 millimeters wide. It ships with 11 gauge D'Addario NYXLs, but I went ahead and set it up with a new set of my usual GHS 10-46. So let's hear it in a mix. Well, Eastman just continues to impress, and I'd say this is another real winner. I did have to raise the action ever so slightly higher than my preferred 1.5 millimeters on the treble side to get really clean bends. This typically indicates the fret leveling is just slightly less than perfect. But that's pretty normal for factory guitars, even the big names. And it's why players notice such a difference when they have their guitar plecked or worked on by an experienced luthier or repairman. It's also why so many factory setups use 2 millimeter action, which will usually play pretty cleanly with less than perfect fret leveling. So to put it in perspective, having to raise the action just a hair higher than 1.5 millimeters is actually pretty decent fretwork. Otherwise, the fit, finish, and overall craftsmanship is first rate, and I wouldn't hesitate to recommend the T64V to anyone considering this type of instrument. As always, I want to thank you so much for watching. Now be sure to give this video a like and subscribe if you haven't yet, both of which helps the channel. And I will see you again very soon.